We're back. We are mid-August on Unlocking Silicon Valley, and we're in the precipice of change.
100%. That's a good word.
Right? We're on the, and obviously it's caused a lot of confusion to a lot of agents. I mean, we talked about this last week. I mean, nobody here is too worried about it. We've all been doing this a long enough time,
Well, the biggest way it's how do we message this, right? How do we educate? I mean, the process itself, it's a very simplified process of just how do we get compensated as buyers agents, and how do the buyers navigate it through. But it's really up to us on how do we message that to our clients.
Well, and what's been really interesting is I've been watching the news on how the news is messaging it out to the consumer.
Right.
And depending on the news channel that you listen to, you're going to get a different angle and different verbiage, right? One was very front leading with, this is going to make things better for buyers. And then, another one is like, this is just causing confusion for agents and consumers. And another one, which I think probably articulated it the best, said, really the only one that's winning on this is the seller. Because the seller will likely, in a lot of cases, net more money than they may have in the past. And so what that means is it passes on the burden to the buyer, which when you have affordability issues like we do in Silicon Valley, Santa Clara County, it just makes it that much harder for buyers to purchase a home, especially if they're working with inexperienced agents. Because those inexperienced agents are not going to be able to negotiate their own commission, let alone understand how to fill out the contracts correctly.
It's like a double-edged sword for a seller, like you offer a commission in an area where there's no one offering commission, you might end up with more offers and a higher price point. Or and like you said, some sellers may think, don't offer a commission, and they may net more because someone like an agent comes in and doesn't know how to negotiate it.
I think just like it's business 101, right? And we're dealing with salespeople, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and we're dealing with an industry that only works on commission based. So, I mean, I don't that hasn't changed. I mean, the way that we negotiate, the way that we make sure that our clients, both sellers and buyers, get the best deal, quote unquote deal they can, that hasn't changed. And I do believe the prudent seller will understand how offering out that compensation, concession, whatever it is we're going to call it now, is going to be a benefit to them to get more traction, more offers, more.
Well, I think Ben said it. Like, if there's 10 houses in the neighborhood for sale and I'm the only one offering a commission or concession to a buyer's agent, my house is probably going to be a little more popular than the other 9.
It's the same thing as when this wasn't an issue and you would see somebody, if this house is in escrow by Christmas, trip to Hawaii and 3% full commission.
Yeah.
We're salespeople. I mean, incentivize the salespeople. That's what it's all about. And again, I think prudent and experienced agents and sellers will recognize why that's still a good thing to do.
Definitely.
And take it off the table for the buyer to worry about how this works or not. But there's no worry. The contracts are very clear. It's just how we fill them out.
Yeah, and the other thing I think where there might be a little bit of misconception on the buyer side is the buyer saying, well, you know what, I'll just go to the listing agent directly then. Right, because then I'll be able to save because the agent doesn't have to have money.
David, that goes back to the whole thing where it's not always about the money.
Exactly.
What about the representation? What about having the experience behind you to recognize, is that really the proper house? Not all about just, am I getting it for the lowest price, or am I saving money on commission? I mean, that has nothing to do when you're looking at the roof over your head being the right property for you.
Right, and because remember, like Mark said, agents are commissioned real estate people, and they have a fiduciary duty to their seller first and 100%. Foremost. Right, so I'm going to try to get my seller the most amount of money or the best terms first and foremost. So I would continue to encourage buyers agents to seek out their own representation.
People think that by having the listing agent write up their offer and everything, even if, and I understand this, hey, there's multiple offers on there. Agent tells you, hey, the highest offer is $2 million. You come in 2.1. That's inside information that's legal to give, and the buyer's like, oh, I got the house. But what happens? Cracking the foundation, do a foundation inspection, you come up with $100,000 as one of the options.
Yeah.
How is that listing agent going to truly represent the buyer's best interest on how to navigate that?
Yep.
That's where people step on their toes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like hiring the same lawyer to fight both sides of the case, right?
Which won't happen.
Exactly.
It won't happen.
Exactly.
It's illegal. That's why I still don't understand why California allows us to do this.
Yeah.
I just don't.
But I had a client, like Mark said, he went into an open house. You know how people make you sign in. He left his information. He wasn't quite sure whether he was going to move forward with that house, and he texted me about it. We were chatting, and the listing agent on the day of offers, he's like, okay, you know what, this is not good for me, so he passed on it. But the listing agent reached out to him, and he's like, hey, the highest offer is $2 million, right? You got to be, if you come in at $2,050,000, I can get this done for you, kind of thing, right? And then he's like, hey, G, this is the text I got. I was like, it's not worth $2,050,000. Just let's just keep looking, right? And then the next thing we know, he's increased the price from 1.7 to 1.95 as transparent pricing. So he's trying to fish out 100K more, from these buyers that have walked into the
because they got the seller in the background going, where's my offer? You got to get my number for me, right?
Exactly. And he knows he's going to lose momentum, especially if he's...
Well, it's like David said, there's no fiduciary duty that the listing agent owes to the buyer.
Absolutely.
Yep. So buyers, interview agents, pick the best one. Don't think you have to lock in on a listing agent.
Well, even if you sign the buyer broker agreement, buyers need to understand that there are two options for a buyer broker agreement. There is the agreement where it's exclusive and then non-exclusive. So again, if you
have options,
and if you need to get into a home to tour, sign a non-exclusive, interview a couple agents, and
but here's and I know dealing with agents all the time, I want to double in that transaction, make the extra money on it. But from the consumer standpoint, why would you not want the best representation you can have? The seller has their representation. That now, starting from ground zero, the buyers have to have representation. They do. Now they can give it up. They can waive it and go directly to a listing agent. But that representation, when people are buying one of the most highest valued asset in their portfolio, why would you not want the best representation possible?
Absolutely.
And my final, my final note on that is like, and Mark and I talked about this recently. It used to be in real estate, somebody will say, oh, my niece or nephew just got into the business. I want to give them a deal. I want them to have them represent me on this purchase or whatever. Those days are long gone. There's too much at stake. The contracts now have gotten, I will say, more complicated in terms of how they're to be interpreted and applied, in the right manner. Tell your niece, your nephew, whatever, get into a mentorship program at a good brokerage. Make sure you have some experience backing you before you trust a family member or a friend with one of the largest transactions you'll ever make.
Yeah. I think it's an uphill battle, definitely, for newer agents getting their license right now.
But see, why?
Because
understanding things, or
it's just become a lot more complex of a process.
So my pushback to that is, I think the agents who are going to be more challenged than anything, you've got your new agents coming in, they're not going to know any difference. This is the way they're going to be taught from day one. The experienced agents will be able to navigate through this. The agents in that middle, I'm telling you, the biggest challenge I have explaining this are the agents who've been in this business from 5 to 20 years and have been set in their ways, and this is the way I do it, and trying to change that mindset. Those are the ones who are going to have the hardest time with it.
And I've never said this, I've never said this before, but I truly think agents that are working for large national franchises are in a better position than boutique brokerages. 100%. Because of the training that we've had. I mean, Mark, spent 6 hours, over 3 days training just on these contracts, where those smaller brokerages, maybe names you haven't heard of, they don't have the in-house or corporate training and backing that we do. So, Mark and I have done both boutique brokerages and large franchises, and this is the first time I think I can say with confidence that we are better prepared to roll this out because we're part of a large franchise, Keller Williams, than a lot of these boutique mom and pop shops.
But I will tell you this, on kind of a different reasoning, I do believe it is becoming more challenging for new agents to get into this business, right? Because they're competing with teams like us, and that's why you have teams like us where we can take a newer agent like you guys were and jump into it and give you more experience in a year than most agents get in 10 years, right?
100%.
So those agents coming in trying to do it on their own, in general, are going to have a very difficult time really cracking into this business.
Yeah, they'll be up to speed faster on the forms, but they now, for the first time ever, have had to negotiate their own commissions. Right? So imagine that, you're 20 or 22 or whatever, trying to build business and also having to learn this side of the business and how to negotiate, commission.
My lack of experience is worth 3%.
That is crazy.
Because a lot of the things, like when I, both Ben and I, when we first started, the one of the things we could tell clients is like, look, it costs you no money to work with us right now. that conversation can no longer happen. Like, it does cost you money.
It costs you real money. That's right.
Even though they were buying the house and your commission was baked into it, so they were paying for it.
Exactly. It's just not upfront, out of pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
But
that
it's
becomes-
going to be common practice now. So it's not like one buyer over another one way or the other. That compensation has to
Which
be
makes
paid.
it even more important that we, as buyers agents, give that experience to people of how to do this properly, so they can go and tell their friends and family. Because again, you have one bad experience, they tell everyone they know. So it's even more important to keep building that.
Can't wait. Bring it on.
Let's do it.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What do you got, Benjamin?
Well, let me ask you guys, in an area like this, where we have high-end tech workers buying homes, larger incomes in most of the world, do you think interest rates being as high as they are, given that this is the only opportunity for these tech workers to write off, items in their taxes, is this more beneficial to tech workers to have higher interest rates, so where they can write off more, or do they look at it
because
as
you have the SALT
you're
tax,
limited.
right? Yeah, you're limited.
limited.
So the last presidential administration put a cap on that.
$10,000.
At $10,000, where
Yeah.
before you could write off all, it really benefited East and West Coast, right? The higher end states, where you could write off all your property taxes, all of your mortgage interest, but the prior administration capped that to $10,000.
And I'm going to push back that the rates are actually coming down a little bit.
are.
You can actually get 5.5%
Yeah.
right now, right?
Yeah.
Buy down.
So kind of interesting. Yeah, you're right. Interest rates dropped to their lowest level in about a year,
Right.
A week or so ago when we had that big dip. But nationally, it only increased purchasing power by about $30,000.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now it does mean if you're a first time home buyer and that house is at $1.1 million,
Right.
now you can go 130, right? So it may get us in there. But I do think we've got the Fed's meeting next month. They're predicting a quarter to a half a point cut in interest rates. But yeah, I mean, and with relationship financing, right? For people, tech workers that have a lot of money in the bank, they can actually use that to buy down the rate even further.
And the real cool thing with new home developments, I mean, they're prepaying for their buyers to come in, and they're getting those rates down to like 4.5% to 5%.
Yeah.
Now they're temps, right? They're just doing that couple year buy down, but so. Push back a little bit. I mean, you can get a rate at around 5.5, 6. That's still a pretty
I'm
damn
getting ready
good
to do a
rate.
refinance on my house, and my buy down rate's going to be about 4.25%.
Isn't it interesting that so again, when people say when's the right time to buy, we're going to wait for interest rates to go down. Interest rates start going down, stock market starts going down, buyers start losing buyer power, and then they end up waiting again.
Listen, we have real estate mortgage advisors, right? Which some of us are investors on and stuff. And what I find funny about it, everybody, it's all about the rate, all about the rate. Well, the reality of it is, what REMA does is they stay in contact with them as the rates drop, they're refinancing and they're saving. The clients are saving money over that. It's not always about that rate up front. Right?
Absolutely. My clients actually, so we did a transaction a couple months ago now, and now he's doing a refinance. He got a much higher rate, and then since rates dropped, Jim is refinancing.
And not only that, but you skip a month's payment as well. So think about it. You buy the home, you skip a month's payment. You refinance 6 months, you skip a month's payment. So now you skip 2 payments over 12 months in addition to the cost savings that you get by refinancing. So again, don't get stuck on that initial
And you get to buy the house you want. I mean, like what G just said. I mean, that guy would probably still be looking for a house if he said, "Oh, I'm going to wait till the rates drop." Right?
Yeah, and now he got appreciation as his home value went up as his payment went down.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So no, it's a great time to be a buyer as interest rates are starting to cool off.
I'm also seeing a lot more activity. We are over the last couple of weeks there was a slight slowdown in buyer activity around June, July, but now I think people are coming back. Open houses are busier, and I'm seeing more offers on the table as well.
Yeah.
In the last couple of months, I would be one of maybe 3 offers. Now we are like one of 6, 7 offers.
Yeah,
on properties.
Aaron just had me comp out a property in Newark that he's going to make an offer on. 1.9 million, and he's going to offer 2.1.
Wow.
So,
where I feel good about that is every year we go through this. We've talked about it before. Oh my God, the market's shifting. August comes back. Everybody, I'm shocked at how early schools are going back. I mean, is it because I don't have kids in school anymore?
No,
I go to the gym this morning.
last week.
It's stacked. Of like, what? The high school's already back in session. What's going on?
Yeah.
And
Parents are getting tired. They're just getting their kids back in school.
No, it's true. And speaking of a good little buyer story from this week, I got someone in off market. Recent comps in the area were 1,135 and 1,225, and we got it for $1 million.
Wow!
And that's right before that kind of switch, because again, I think now we are seeing tons of more people.
You got to buy from mid-May to mid-July.
Yeah.
Like that little window right there.
Well, it's funny. It's like we say the window for the sellers are February 1 till the end of May. Then summer hits. That switches to the buyer side. And then it's, back to kind of being that seller market coming back August and to really the end of the year. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Where's stats? Or where are our market stats? We're the same, right?
I rattled it off last week. I mean, we're basically at the peak where we're about between 13 and 1,400 units combined between single-family homes, condos, townhomes. And we're sitting at about a little over a month's worth of inventory.
Yeah. It's still, again, 200 plus off-market homes. So again, as buyers, if you are interested at all in starting this process, whether it's now or in 12 months, like understand this market, look at our off-market list, understand these areas. That buyer who just got it, the $1 million home in San Jose, has solar on it, completely paid off, and the HOA pays for the water. This man is walking into this home literally just paying property taxes and a mortgage.
I'm like, internet, right?
That's awesome.
And this is, again, what you can just find if you're just patient and waiting for that right spot to come up.
Well, hold on. You guys gold mine like nobody else, so I wouldn't say you can just find.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're
not just sitting out there on the street.
Yeah, we do actively work for it, but again,
well, I was going to say, and that home, would have never found it on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, any of those portals, and I think. Buyers now are just so accustomed to thinking they can go to Zillow or Redfin and see the entire market.
This goes back to why you need representation as a buyer, right?
Yeah.
That listing agent is going to be focused on that house you're walking in, not the list of all the other properties that they have in their back pocket, which they probably don't have anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's really kind of like our inventory is like an iceberg. All you see is a tip, right? But underneath the water,
that's
where nobody
right.
else can
Great
see is
point.
where we have all
Great
the off
point.
market coming soon, upcoming trust sales, upcoming probate sales, and that's what we have access
and again,
to.
you go back to being part of not a small boutique, but a larger office. We have properties that are not even on the MLS coming soon. Like our office has a list of 50 to 100 homes of
not even just our office, but just of who we are with our team. How many of you? I mean, we always get calls from brokers at other companies saying, "Hey, we got this."
And that's the thing. It's a relationship industry. At the end of the day, if you have the connection, especially as a buyer agent to a seller's agent or another agent of another office, like you have those connections, it's a lot easier to navigate this market, get these off-market opportunities, advantages and offers.
And our team has not only one but two buyer specialists, right? So I think buyers need to be aware. Right? Who you work with matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Never said that before. All right, Benjamin, what else you got?
A question I got from a buyer this week. Do I have to be here during the sign-off? The answer, no. There are notaries all over our country, no matter what state you're in. We just have to plan it properly, days in advance, to make sure we get that notarized document all the way across the country or different state that you're in. But again, we have the connections. If you are in LA, we will send a notary out to you in LA, get a sign-off for you.
What happens, Ben, if I'm married and I'm here and my wife is in Europe?
Then you have to get an attorney to sign for you. Make sure you, what's it called?
Power of attorney.
Power of attorney.
Specific power of attorney?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if I forgot to do that? How can my wife sign off in a foreign country?
You got to go and find yourself an embassy.
Let's go on into that.
Didn't we have a client where that happened? I remember that. They had to find an embassy to go and sign off.
Yeah.
Wild.
The main thing is,
during COVID, and it was like 3 weeks to make an appointment and 4 days away.
Yeah. The main thing for consumers to know is, like, if you don't think you're going to be around, let us know sooner rather than later. Because we can get the specific power of attorney, or we can schedule a sign off somewhere else. Unfortunately, California does not allow DocuSign sign offs, which a lot of other states do. Right. Exactly. So I mean, in the future, it's probably coming, but until then, let an agent know.
And one thing that goes with that I think buyers question as well is like, oh, but we won't be able to do the walkthrough. What is the walkthrough? At the end of the day, the walkthrough is specifically to make sure that the property is in the same state that it was when you bought the home. Right. Don't, especially when there's stagers or a family living in there, we just want to make sure there's no nicks in the wall, unnecessary toilet leaks. It's handles falling off. It's nothing that can't be done after you come back from a sign off.
I've got two quick things I want to add. The first one, and Jacob, I'll give you the link and maybe a screenshot of the page. CNN has actually an interesting interactive tool for people that are thinking about relocating out of the area and they're not quite sure where yet. Right, so you just put in your address, and then you have some broad parameters, which is like, I want to stay in state, I want to move out of state, I want to stay in the region. You put that in, and then it starts to pull up a bunch of different results, and then you can filter the results by population density, income, the amount of singles in that area. So if you're looking to meet your forever person, you want to go to a place with a high percentage of single
this is
people.
on CNN.
Yeah, it's interactive
That's
map.
cool.
Yeah, so it takes census data, right?
Yeah.
Takes job, job opportunities, affordability, all that stuff, and you can calculate if you want to live somewhere that's drier or rainier. You put in all those fields, and it will give you different areas to suggest where you might want to relocate to. Kind of
That's
cool.
very cool. Yeah.
The second thing I want to talk about, because we are deep in the throes of an election year. Everything's ramping up. We have our presidential election, but we have our local election and local laws that we get to vote on here in November. One of them, specifically for San Jose in November, has to do with expanding rent control in our area. Now, we've talked about this on the podcast many, many times before. California is not landlord friendly.
Right.
More areas, Berkeley, Oakland, San Francisco, and now into San Jose, they are trying to increase the amount of tenant protection, which, the flip side of that is it ends up hurting those mom and pop investors. So the reason why I bring it up there, I will get the ballot initiative to Jacob to put on the screen, but even our own mayor, Matt Mahan, has come out and said he is against this bill that would increase, rights for tenants.
Do you know what those expansions are that they're referring to?
So I'll pull it up on a slide, but it's harder to evict, right? It limits the things that a landlord can prohibit. Right, I know there's a talk about, is it already in law that you can't discriminate against pets anymore?
Yeah.
Maybe discriminate's the wrong word, but
it is so challenging because I respect the need for affordable housing by all means.
Yeah.
I respect that, where tenants, they can't afford to buy, they need an affordable place to live. I get all that, but this is also a free society that encourages the ability to do better for yourself and to buy real estate. I mean, I believe that's what America was made of, having the freedom to do that. And the controls that they're coming down. You look at San Francisco and some of these other areas.
Oakland, yeah.
I mean, to go to somebody who worked their butt off, to either their parents did and it was inherited to them, or you have the wife who it's her sole income because her husband passed away, and to sit there and tell them that they can't increase their rent or they can't evict this person because of this reason, I think it just goes way too far. So I'm glad to hear that, even our local mayor is saying, okay, guys, pump those brakes a little bit. Let's have a little bit of flexibility there.
Yeah.
That's good.
Absolutely. Other than that, recap. We got a lot going on in the next 30 days.
Oh yeah,
Right?
without a doubt.
We continue our music in the park tradition.
2 more weeks, people.
2 more Sundays.
And the last Sunday of the year is a Bee Gees cover band. So it's going to be a poppin' one. If you're going to come to one of them, do it where their cover band comes.
And then we got Jazz on the Plaza, on the 21st, right?
Which is next Wednesday. So next Wednesday, Jazz on the Plaza. We'll have tickets for food and drink. We'll be passing out wine and beverages. And then September 6th, 5:30, we have
a casino night, isn't it?
Casino night. So I know we filmed some promos. We're pushing that out. But so if you're a client or a good referral partner of ours, and if you haven't heard from us, please reach out. We want to make sure that you're there in attendance because it is a great time.
And to remind on casino night, I had a couple people ask me, it's house money.
Great event, upscale. People like to dress up, and we have a good time. Again, it's all house
I think it's
money.
some great raffle money or raffle
Raffle
prizes out there
prizes,
too,
dance
right?
floor, photo booth, food,
Awesome stuff.
drinks. Yeah, so don't
Hands
miss
down
it.
one of our best events.
The
Biggest
best. It is the best.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll have a great time September 6th. Hope to see you guys there. Otherwise, make it a great day.
Sounds good.
Again.